see a pause and a share button. Okay, now it looks like we are now. I see the red dot. Okay. Thank you for whoever did that. Was that, I hope that was Bob Dill. So anyway, I think perhaps I logged in with my personal Zoom account, not the club one, or Bob Dill's one that the club uses. Well, I have a $5 happy for being home from Florida. My mom is on the mend from pneumonia, and my happy dollars are that she's improving, no COVID for the curious. And my brother's surgery last week for colon cancer was also very successful, and he's home and out of the hospital. So it was a good week for our family as well. But I'm glad to be home, despite the fact that it's a lot colder here and not 70 degrees. So anyway, that was tempting to stay there. Any other happy dollars?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, honey.
I texted Jonna just to tell her I was thinking of her and stuff, and she's texted back to me. I am at Norman Regional. I was in AFib, but am back to normal sinus rhythm as of early this morning. So good for her.
Yeah, that's wonderful news. That she's feeling better. Any other happy dollars? Okay. Well, Keith, I'm going to let you go on to tell us about Salvation Army bell ringing.
Okay. Well, last Saturday was our third Saturday, and another great success. Unfortunately, I've only got the first kettle count from November 28th. I haven't received anything else since, but I know that we've had a couple decent weeks anyway, and I'm anxious to hear that. And, you know, the real good news is it's been hard to fill the slots and get volunteers, but once I get there, I've had very, very little, last minute changes or anything like that. And thank you, everybody. Some people have stepped up 4 and 5 times to help me fill the slots. Greatly appreciated. And for everybody listening, today or this Saturday is our last chance to ring bells. And I've got 8 slots left out of the 19 slots. It's, again, 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock at Sam's Saturday. And the first empty slot is from 2 to 3. And then actually, I've got kind of a happy story. The 2:30 to 3:30 slot, I went to one of my doctors up at OU Medical, and the receptionist, I had my Rotary t-shirt on and Rotary windbreaker on, and she said, "Oh, I love Rotary." And she's a young lady from Bonita, Oklahoma that's been student of the week, and she's been involved in RILA and stuff in the Tulsa district. Anyway, she and a friend are coming down to ring bells from 2:30 to 3:30.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so if you guys see this name Shelby Hoskin on there, that's who that is, and that's what that's about. Made my day. So anyway, I've got 2 to 3, and then we've got Shelby, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots in a row from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So don't be bashful. Speak up now and get you a slot, please.
Keith, I can do 3 to 4. Do you need someone? Do you have 2 people at that time, or is it just 1?
No, I don't have anybody at 3 to 4.
Okay, put me down 3 to 4.
Okay,
David.
And then you'll get a ring. Your first half hour will be with Shelby from Bonita, Oklahoma.
Cool. That'll be cool. Looking forward to it.
And
by the way, the weather's going to be good this weekend. It'll be chilly, but it'll be sunny, probably a high near 50.
Keith, I can take your 2 o'clock slot if you don't have anybody there.
Okay, Bob Dill from 2 to 3. You guys just want to meet Shelby is all.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't blame you. She's a nice, friendly, very perky gal. Okay, now.
This is Marlis. I can take. Was 3:30 available?
3:30 is available, Marlis. It's yours.
Okay.
What's available next, Keith? This is Jim.
Okay. The next one is 4 to 5, Jim.
Okay.
All right.
This is
Keith?
Susan. When am I down for? I know I'm down. I just can't remember what time.
Is that Susan?
Yes.
No, no. After you with April took your slot, and so you're not down for anything right now.
Oh, I had it on. Well,
And that's why. And I'm sure. Well, I don't know. I think April's online with us too. But April has actually taken 2 slots. She'll be there for 2 hours. She's got 12:30 to 1:30, and then 1:30 to 2:30. And the 1:30 to 2:30 is what you originally had, Susan.
okay. Well, what am I supposed to do? I can take one of her 2 hours. She doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, well, I'll let you, I'm going to keep April on there. April, are you with us?
I believe she is.
Okay. Susan and April work that out, and somebody else is trying to volunteer, yes?
Keith, whatever,
Yeah.
fill me in wherever.
Okay, Terry, you're down for the 7 to 8 o'clock. You're the closer again.
Okay,
Jane Purcell is right above you. She took the 6:30 to 7:30 slot.
okay, you still have any other openings?
There's 1, 2, 3. We got 4 left from 4:30 to 6 o'clock. I guess for you, Terry, if you wanted to take another one, it would be the 6 to 7 slot. And
Okay, put me down.
Keith, I sent my name in for 6.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. But anyhow, I like connecting with Terry.
All right. How about Cliff? Can you move up a half hour and take 5:30 to 6:30?
I can.
Okay. You got it. All right. We got 2 slots left, 4:30 to 5:30, 5 to 6.
Keith, this is Vicki Anderson.
Yeah.
You can put for 5.
Okay. Vicki, you're from 5 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One more, 4:30 to 5:30.
Keith, Bob Estrie put me down.
Are you sure you're healthy enough, big boy?
Well, I just stay away from people and breathe a little bit. I can do it. Just having trouble
Bob,
breathing.
Bob,
It's
I'll
not-
take that slot.
Okay.
Jeff Bryant, I'll take that slot, Bob.
You got relief, Bob, from Jeff Bryant. I think it's smarter for Jeff to do it than for you to do it. And if you feel compelled, you come out there and just greet people the best you can anytime you want to. Jeff, I'm going to put you down from 4:30 to 5:30. That fills it up. Thank you, everybody. I've got to have cataract surgery here in a little while this morning, but I will later on today send out this update. And thank you, everybody. It's very appreciated.
Well, thank you, Keith, for organizing all of this and keeping after us to sign up. And as Keith said, thank you to everybody for volunteering. You know, our friends and our neighbors in the community have been hit hard this year, and so many of us are blessed on this call with you know, shelter and food and a warm place and family. And this is going to go a long way towards helping those people who don't have those supports and the stability that we are enjoying. So thank you all. I am hosting a Breakfast Buddies next Tuesday, December 22nd, in lieu of our regular club meeting. We don't typically meet during the winter holidays. And so 7 a.m. at Neighborhood Jam. They've assured me that when I called, they kind of giggled when I asked for a reservation. They're like, yeah, just walk in. Nobody's here at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. So we'll be able to socially distance and enjoy a delicious breakfast together for the, if you'll just email me and let me know. We are Team 4. Please, I think Mel and Jennifer Jenkins emailed us. We're looking for a Lunch Buddy sponsor for Tuesday, December 29th. And, or if you know, so we'll see with that. And then food and shelter is looking for Christmas dinner help is needed. April, if you're available, can you jump in with some details there? I'm not sure. Okay, maybe not. Are there other announcements? Any other announcements?
Jane, you might just remind everybody about their end of year giving to remember the Rotary Foundation and polio.
Yes.
We're kind of heading, we're having a rough time now with COVID, and a couple of the countries have really gone backwards, and we just can't stop our momentum now. So if anybody can get on the My Rotary website, you can give your $10 and get credit for that if you need it for your taxes. And thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I think it was at last Friday's board meeting. It was shared that our giving district-wide is about half of what it typically is. And for our club, and our club is usually one of the leaders in giving to the Rotary Foundation. It's super easy to set up on monthly withdrawal. That's what I do. You know, but it's also super easy to make a one-time donation, one-time gift to the Rotary Foundation as well. And in this time where we're meeting remotely and we're not able to do a lot of the community service things that we do, this is a great way. We've done a lot locally with donating money to local organizations that are helping out friends and neighbors in the community. We haven't had the opportunity to do international service this year. And this would be a great way to do that international services, to let Rotary International do that for us by supporting healthcare initiatives around the world, and specifically polio vaccinations, because that's an equally devastating pandemic that fortunately we've mitigated and kind of reduce that to 2 countries. But to Mary's point, during times like this is when ugly diseases like polio flourish. So $10 goes a long way to vaccinating a lot of children. So thank you for that reminder. And I do believe there was an email about the Christmas dinner help from April, but I'll see what I can get out to the club as well about that there. Any other announcements? Okay, with that, and Keith, I did not make this PowerPoint. I'm going to throw Jonna under the bus. She's the one who misspelled your name. Anyway, so this morning we have our very own Keith Busking and Cliff Thomas, who, despite having very different professional careers and lives and things of that nature, both share a love of flying. And so Keith and Cliff, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, or do you guys want to share? How are you guys going to do this?
Jane, I've got a slideshow that we're going to put up while they're speaking.
Okay, wonderful. I will stop sharing my screen then.
Ta-da.
Ta-da, I did it.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Okay, before we get started, this is just an idea of one of the programs we want to do moving forward in 2021 with all our members. So be thinking in terms of every 4 to 6 weeks where we're going to have or hopefully have a club member tell us a little bit more about them, especially while we're virtual. But this will come up in the second slide, but it's this is not going to work unless everybody's participating. So unmute your computer and participate. It's okay to interrupt politely, I guess, but I think I went too far already. Anyway, but so Keith and Cliff are going to share with us the life and times of being a pilot. So I've got a couple of basic questions, but it's going to be more fun if everybody is asking Keith and Cliff questions as we go. But so we'll start off with this one. Well, how about this? Can you all see the picture on the left, the black and white picture?
Yes.
Does anybody know which one that one is?
That's Cliff.
I believe that is Cliff Thomas.
Yeah.
Cliff's ready for Hollywood.
How about the one on the right? Anybody know who that is?
No, I know. I've never seen him.
That's Busking.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? So I kind of summarized this next one, but so everybody participate as much as you can. And we'll start off with Cliff, and then we'll go to Keith to tell us, I guess start off with what's your first recollection of, your interest in being a pilot and how did you become interested, and then give us the route or the path that it took you to, or the process that it took you to get to be a pilot. So Cliff, you ready to start?
I'm ready. Well, when I got interested in being a pilot, although I was born in Appomattox, Virginia, my father moved to Newport News, Virginia. That was near Langley Field and lots of airfields. So as a kid, my buddy and I, his name was Dan, we used to ride our bicycles over to a local airport, a private airport, and we were always afraid if they saw us out there in the woods looking at them, they'd get us. But we'd hide in the woods and watch the Piper Cubs take off. And then from Langley Field, all kinds of aircraft. So I was interested, but really never thought I would ever get into being a pilot myself. But later on, as we moved along, later in life, I decided I was going to try to be a pilot. That would have been in Alabama, and at Wheaton Field in a place called Eufaula, Alabama, which is like our Eufaula here. They have a lake, etc. So I started taking lessons and studying. And in 1978, I took a test, passed the exam, and started flying. They had the 150, the 152, and the 172. They're all single engine, fixed wing type planes, and a lot of fun. So I flew a lot in local areas there in Eufaula, Alabama, up to a couple of times at Fort Benning, and it was exciting to get approval to go in there. And then later ended up down on the Gulf Coast, and the place probably referred to as Pascagoula, Mississippi. And I enjoyed taking my younger brother flying along the Gulf Coast out on the water and that kind of excitement. And so I stayed with local places. From there, I could fly over to Gulfport, Biloxi, and over to Mobile, and it ended up moving to Mobile. So I had a passion for it, but I was also involved a lot during that time working on college degrees. So the type of certification I got was private pilot, single engine, and most of the time I flew in the 4-passenger Cessna 172. And I remember one story. The person I really wanted to take up was my grandmother. And I didn't understand all about having been her grandchild and being a scoundrel when I was young, but she came over the Mobile area and I wanted to take her flying. And she said, well, son, if God had meant us to fly, he would have given us wings. And secondly, I don't want to go up there in the heavens. I don't think we should. So I forgave her. Later, my mother pulled me aside and said, I don't think you understand. Your grandmother, since you're a grandson, she's afraid to fly with you. She knows too much about you. She thinks her life would be in danger. So I thanked her for that. But I later found an organization called the Civil Air Patrol, if you're familiar with that. By the way, we had a club member, Doug Lyle, who was the commander of the Civil Air Patrol here in Norman. But I joined the Civil Air Patrol over in the Fort Rucker, Dothan, Alabama area. It was really very active, and they had three planes. Now you could check the plane out, but you had to dress in your uniform. So I did a lot of work over there. We did activities over there, competitions over with the Civil Air Patrol there. And I did some of that also here in Norman when I first moved here. CAP had a building over on the north base, and I think, I don't remember exactly the time, but there was a huge gush of wind and weather came through and imperiled that building we had. But there was a DC-6, I believe, there, and we were keeping that up and some things. But Doug, then I joined with Doug. We had a lot of kids involved, and we had some participants from Tinka come. It's to encourage young people to get involved in aviation. So we did a lot of the military type things, marching and that, competing with the kids there. It's still active. But so that was my passion. And as far as owning an airplane, I found the best way to do that was to rent, because keeping an airplane up is, I'm sure Keith will tell you, is expensive. So they have a maintenance log in the plane, and you can have access to that. So I didn't have to do that. So I mainly got a plane down here at Goldsby, and there was a gentleman there that I flew a lot with. And then I kind of got busy with some other things, and all of that faded away. I got busy doing my work. I was a director of an adolescent facility, and here about 6 months ago, my family conspired to set me up to go flying at Wally Post. That was my birthday gift. So I went there, and it was a 182, and this young lady who probably weighed 95 pounds got all set up and put me on the left side. She flew on the right side, and that was a mistake because I started getting the passion again. And so I went flying with her, and she was an instructor, etc. And so I got back into it, and I was in the Oklahoma Pilots Association. That, by the way, meets every Thursday evening, and it's at the Clarence Page building there at Wally Post. I did have the pleasure when I first moved here meeting Clarence Page. Y'all probably know who he is. And I met him over at the aviation place, and I gave him a brief discussion on what it is to fly and how you fly. And we shook hands, and I went into a little store they had, and I happened to notice a book that said, "From the Jennies to the Jets, Clarence E. Page." And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing." I did run him down and apologize. He just laughed. But that was pretty much it. And I served with Doug over here in Civil Air Patrol, and that's what the picture's about there. And so that's pretty much it. I am now flying with Lee Holmes, who has an airplane up at Clarence Page, and we've flown with him a lot. We do fly-ins. We flew into Pauls Valley Airport. We had a fly-in up in Tulsa, and so one of the funny things is we put Janet on the right side and put a headset on, and let her grab the control, and that was nice to watch. But that's pretty much, I still have a passion for it, but since I'm not 39 anymore, there are some restrictions, and I'm abiding by those. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Hey, Cliff, this is David. What years were you in Civil Air Patrol here in Norman, or were you in that group? My son was in it about 2000.
Yeah, there was, I came to Oklahoma December of '83, and then it was in 1984.
Okay, so just that 1 year?
Yeah, they were in that, I was in it for a while, but that was when they had the meetings over at the Confederate Air Force building up on North Base. But when that storm came through, the building was condemned, so we had to move out of there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Cliff, Keith, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay. Just the couple of things, like how did you become a pilot? And just so everybody knows, there's a lot more pictures, like some of the stuff that Cliff talked about, we're going to come back to with some photos after. But go ahead and Keith, give us a rundown on how you became interested in et cetera, and I'll move the frame to the next picture.
Okay, well, in 1957, there was a doctor and several other businessmen in my little hometown that owned, and I don't even know what kind of airplane it was, but the strip that they used and the little hangar that they had the plane stored in was close to our farm, and we heard them flying, and Dad, we drove over there and to watch them, and that was my first airplane ride, and my two siblings in this little plane. And I didn't ride in an airplane again until I was a senior in college. And I had always been interested, but just never thought it was a possibility. When I moved to Norman in 1974, I didn't go home for Labor Day weekend. And there was an ad in the paper for a $5 introductory ride out at the Airman. And I called, made an appointment, went out there, paid my $5, went up for 30 minutes. And of course, the sales pitch was, you know, if you sign up for lessons today, we'll enter this in the logbook. And if you want to buy a block of time, we'll give you a 10% discount. So I wrote a check for $300 and started taking lessons. And that was in early, I don't remember the date, but that was in early September of '74. And by the end of the month, I had soloed. And early in 1975, I got my license. And then in 1977, I bought my first airplane. And the airplane that I was standing beside in that first picture that you showed, that was my first airplane, my first new airplane. I bought in 1979 or 78. It was a 78 model. I lost my first airplane in a tornado in Nebraska. And the picture showing there now is my grandpa. He was 80 years old at the time, and that was 1975. And that's the first time he'd flown since 1920 when he took a $1 ride in an open cockpit airplane. So anyway, that's kind of my story of how it started. And then obviously in my business, my airplane was just invaluable. I flew all over the state, all over the central United States, actually doing deals and things like that, and attending meetings. And it's just been a wonderful thing for me. You want me to keep talking, Bill, as you on this slide now, or?
Yeah, that's what I just thought I'd segue into this one because this story is pretty interesting, and I'm not sure if both these pictures fit together, but it looked like they were very close. And then, but yeah, just go with one of your stories, but start with this one, please.
Okay, well, the bigger picture of the two you're looking at with the tail of the airplane on the ground, myself and three other guys, my son included, were on a hunting trip in Iowa. And we were loading up to come home, and obviously the plane was quite overloaded and loaded heavy to the aft side. But I also knew as soon as I fired the airplane up that the propeller and it would suck it back down to the ground, and it did. We took off and we went airborne safely and made it back to Norman safely. And the second photo is my plane. I flew, and some of you have heard my presentation when I flew all the way into Outback in Alaska in 2011. And that's my plane sitting on the ramp at Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, Canada, on my way into Alaska. And I just always thought that was a beautiful background and beautiful picture. So that's the story on those two photos. And that's that airplane I bought new in 1981. And that's still the airplane I fly today.
Interesting.
I think, were you in a 172 initially, you and your granddad?
Yes, that was a 172, but I learned to fly in a 150. So that's no.
That was, so I think Keith and I both had a similar experience. So you have ground school and then you have instruction to fly, and the goal is to solo. It's a big moment when you solo. And usually, I don't know, it took me about 3 hours to solo. How about you, Keith?
I was 8 hours.
Well, anyhow, when you're ready, the instructor, the way they did there where I was, they have people waiting, and when you solo, the instructor gets you to stop, and he says, "Okay, go." So what you do, and you climb out, and then you know you got two choices: to land it yourself, or it'll go down one day. So when you pull back in and you solo, these guys would run you down. They told you to take a shirt that wasn't all that valuable, because they run you down and tear your shirt off and put the date that you soloed on it and put it in the hanger. So that was a big moment. I was going to ask Keith, part of your training, you end up having to learn, get the idea of what it's like that if you're taking off full power and your engine feathers on you, what you do, and when also when you're coming into land, if that happens. So I don't know about Keith, but you go up, we went up to about 3,500, and what you do is you take the plane for a full power stall and just start pulling back and head up until the plane stops flying and it drops back and heads in one direction or the other. But you got your instructor there and he teaches you how to recover it. And then the other is the case too. But now you've got to go up by yourself. And I got up to about 4,000, and then I kept talking to myself and asking God to get me through this full power stall. It's kind of wicked. And you're just in the plane yourself. And so I finally talked to God and made some deals. If you can get me through this, I'll tithe more, or I'll be a better person. I'll be nice to my wife, whatever. It's kind of like Burt Reynolds in the end. Anyhow, I made a deal, and so up we started. And actually, I got it up, and it went to the left, and I recovered it. And then I did okay, but I kind of had to say to the old master, well, let's go back to the 10%. So anyhow, I don't know, was that a frightening moment for you, Keith?
Actually, no. I mean, I think the hottest I ever was as far as my skills right at my fingertips and in my brain stuff was when I was taking lessons. And, my instructor had instilled a lot of confidence, and he was a good instructor. And so, no, in fact, it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, you remember your cross country, you had to fly cross country 300 miles, air miles. And when you ask, and I was in a 150, that was what we flew. And I was flying down toward Destin Beach in Florida. And I noticed this cloud formation coming my way. And so I called in and the people I talked to, I said, this is 733 Whiskey Yankee, and I am a student pilot. I know what they do up in the tower. They say ho, 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 and all that. But I said, I've got some cloud formation, some weather coming at me. What do you recommend I do to change my heading vector? And they said, no, we think I see what you're in. I'd filed a flight plan. They said, we think you can go through it. And the 150 is 2-passenger. And so it's amazing. I headed into this cloud formation. In other words, it was a whiteout in a 150, and a plane did drop some distance, but just kept going wrong. And so I got through that, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And that was an encounter. But other than that, I never did encounter any situations that were dangerous. I understood the weather. I never took on the weather. some people would ask me to fly them to these places, and I'd get a weather report. And if it was a bad report, I would just call them and say, we better not go today. And sometimes people will say, well, so you're a wuss, huh? You don't want to go that way. I said, no, I don't. So you're the guy, and you has to say that. But that's why you end up living through it all. But that 300-mile leg you have to go by yourself, that was very interesting. And you feel a lot of confidence after you do that. But my grandmother never ever had any confidence in me, because she just felt like God in heaven didn't want us up there flying around. She always rode the train when she'd come down to Mississippi from Virginia. So I accepted that. And, she probably didn't ride in the car with me very much either, for the same reasons. But how about yourself, Keith?
Cliff,
Yeah.
it sounds like your grandmother was a wise lady.
Who said that? Was that you, Keith?
No.
Well,
Bob Dylan.
She was wise. Actually, she was wise. But anyhow, I keep seeing what we're looking at now. And I remember when Keith had this happen to him. That's you see that medal. You ought to tell us about that, Keith.
Hey, well, there's been a couple questions popped up in the chat, and Charlotte Jones, when I made the comment about losing my first airplane in a tornado, it was tied down on the ground. I had flown home for my 10th class reunion, had spent 2 days shining and polishing my airplane, and I was going to give all my classmates that wanted to go with me a ride. And about 2 hours after I arrived, just a freak tornado came up and actually pulled the tie downs out of the ground and just demolished my airplane. So, but anyway, nobody was hurt, except the airplane. So that was that. And then Scott Mullins was asking about how often we go up, and I fly on a typically monthly, go to Nebraska, go to Houston, take a decent cross-country flight. I don't do hardly any local flying anymore. And then this picture that we're looking at now was in 2005. And those of you that were Rotarians back then, Jim Bennett was also in our club. He's a pilot, and he'd flown his plane to Liberal, Kansas for maintenance, and wanted me to fly up there and pick him up and bring him back so he could and leave his plane up there. So we were on our way back and just south of Oklahoma City, going to Goldsby, and the plane all of a sudden made a funny noise like it was out of fuel, and I, in my mind, I knew that it wasn't, but I reached down and switched fuel tanks, and about the time that I flipped fuel tanks, the engine blew up, and oil came all over the windscreen, and the hole at the bottom is where the rod came through the block, and the other hole up at the top right, that was a magneto that got knocked off by the flying rod, and then it opened up the cowling from the engine, and that's how the oil got all over the windscreen. We were at about 3,700 feet at the time, kind of west of Newcastle, and believe it or not, we were able to glide into Westheimer and land safely at Westheimer. And it's a long, long story, but anyway, the good Lord was looking after us that day, because there was no way that should have happened, and it did. And as we went over the top of Ferguson, Pontiac, we landed to the northeast, and I looked over at Jim and I said, Jim, we're not going to make it. And about that time, the plane just kind of levitated, and we made it. So, and that's a very rare occasion for an engine to disintegrate like that. And it actually turned out to be a defective, or a defect in that particular engine. And after very little fighting time with the engine manufacturer, I got a new engine from them at no cost. So anyway, Any other questions? I see some more chats. Maybe there's some questions popping up there.
The tornado event, was that in Nebraska?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And just a free, I mean, and it wasn't forecast or anything like that. And, you know, it just happened. But thank goodness, you know, I mean, again, it happened, I think about 7 o'clock at night, and
yeah,
and nobody was hurt. But yes, it was in Southwest Nebraska.
Okay, this is Bill again. I'm going to jump through the slides and see if I missed anything, because it's amazing to me how fast the time goes. It's already 7:55, but Keith, I think these two were pictures that you sent me. Just real briefly, this was your trip coming back from Houston most recently, I think.
Yeah, this was just right after Thanksgiving weekend. I think, well, it was a Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I was flying back to Oklahoma, and the first picture is the weather was terrible down in Houston, heavy rains and stuff, and I am instrument rated, and came out on instruments, got above the clouds, and that's what it looked like between the layer of clouds. And then just all of a sudden, right north of Dallas, it was the end of the clouds. And the lake picture is Lake Texoma. That's looking westbound out of the pilot seat of my plane. I think that's the Willis Bridge that you can see down there, the bridge closest, or kind of the bottom of the screen. And that's just looking westbound over Lake Texoma, and that's how it cleared up so quickly. And that's the, I mean, I like instrument flying as long as it's not thunderstorms and you know, threatening weather. That's what those two pictures are, and that's just last month.
Thank you very much.
I'm curious, how many miles do you get per tank full before you have to land and refuel?
My plane carries 92 gallons of fuel, and obviously the miles, it depends on, you know, headwind, tailwind. I can stay in the air about 6.5 hours, and that'll get you a long ways. The furthest I've ever flown in my plane nonstop as far as distance, I took off from here one morning and flew all the way to the East Coast. Well, not quite to the coast, but I could see the ocean. Columbia, South Carolina, I think it was. And that was, I was up high and burning very little fuel, and I was in the air for a little over 8 hours that day, and I landed on fumes.
What altitude would you typically fly at for that type of journey?
That particular day, I was at 13,500, and that's pretty high for me, but that's typically I'm in the 8,000 range, you know, and it depends what direction you're going. If you're going anywhere, an easterly direction, it's odd thousands plus 500. If you're going a westerly direction, it's even thousands plus 500. Unless your instrument, then it's just even and odd thousands.
Hey, I have a question. Does anybody recognize this airplane Bill is showing? Anybody know about the Spirit of St. Louis?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is the Spirit of St. Louis 2. It's being constructed at Wiley Post in a hangar, and its schedule, Robert Ragazzino is going, he's 61. He's going to take the same route that Charles Lindbergh did, and this plane is in reconstructed. It's the Spirit of St. Louis 2, which is yeah. He's going to leave in June, hopefully, and fly into I think is La Bourget Airport in Paris, France. It took Lindbergh 33.5 hours to go in that plane back in 26 or 27. This one is going to weigh essentially the same, and it's going to fly from New York to Paris in June. and they brought this plane to the hangar at our last, most recent get together with the Pilot Association. To the left is what, Keith, is what the panel looks like up there. It's not a lot of stuff, is it?
No, pretty basic.
Yeah, they added one thing for which Lindbergh didn't have. The pilot can reach up and exercise his upper body. And so this guy, he's flown around the world twice in an open cock plane. So when we met him at the meeting, he's not anxious anything. He knows he can make it. Now, the equipment is a little more modern, but the plane will be flying at about the same speed, about 100 knots or airspeed. And so it's going to be fun. Some of us are hoping to fly up to New York at where Charles Lindbergh left. I think it was Roosevelt Airfield at the time. So an Oklahoman is doing this, as well as astronaut. We got lots of aviation people in Oklahoma. So, and Polly, you can learn to fly.
Okay.
Yeah, VFR, visual flight rules, and try it.
I would love it.
Well, Jen has met ladies there who wanted to learn to do a multi-engine at age 60. Twin engine, that takes some doing.
I would think so.
You know, the Spirit of St. Louis too, you can go over to Wally Post and you can see it, but it's not a big plane. I think it weighs about 5,250 pounds. It's going to be carrying 600 gallons of fuel, Keith, and I think the original one carried 450 gallons of fuel, averaged about 10 miles a gallon. So anyhow, that's it.
Well, thank you both. Yeah, I appreciate both of y'all to help me out put the slideshow together and everybody participating. And I wish we had a little bit more time, but anyway, Jane, I think you still there?
Thank you, Bill. This was fascinating, getting to know a little bit more about Keith and Cliff and flying and some of their exciting stories. So thank you.
It was very ironic to me that Keith and Cliff and I would talk about this, and it's like, well, how do we come up with enough information? And then and now here we are, we're done. And they really just touched the tip of the iceberg on what we shared or what they shared with me earlier. So we may have to do it again later or in person.
Yes.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas to everybody. It's 8:02, so our time together this morning has come to a close. But thank you, Bill, Keith, for your presentation this morning. I hope everybody has a lovely week. Stay safe and healthy and happy. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks on Zoom or at Breakfast Buddies or something like that. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
People are dropping off here like flies, but we need to appreciate Bill Wallace. He's becoming quite skilled at putting these things together. And Bill probably spent 5 or 6 hours to do this and figure out how to send it to us for review stuff. So, Bill, thank you for your hard work on that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure,
Thank you,
Keith.
Bill.
Thank you.
Good job, Bill.
And Keith, I hope your cataract surgery goes well this morning.
Thank you. It will, I think.
Yep. Let us know if you need anything.
Take care.
Got it. We'll see you in a week. Bye.